Okay. I'm getting a little bit tired of this, but it's time to do another horror movie.
Oh boy.
And we generally know how that goes, so let's just do this again. This time we have Sinister 2. Honestly, for a while there, this is a movie I was a little bit afraid of. Because it was, oh my god, was it really 2012?
That sounds right.
When the first one came out?
I will find out. No worry. Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, that's, wow.
It seems forever ago, doesn't it?
Okay, sorry. I just totally forgot about that. It feels really, really recent, and the reason for that is because that movie scared the shit out of me.
Oh, yeah.
I understand that there are people out there that, you know, it's the new... it's not new, but it's the thing where pretty much every horror movie that comes out now has to be labeled not scary, unless it's an indie movie, apparently. Well, and a lot, you know, the Ghost Kids got a lot of criticism, stuff like that, how people just weren't taken to that. Just the whole thing. The whole fucking thing just freaked me the hell out. And I just really wanted no part of it. But no, that's a good thing, though, because it did it in a really good... That's the thing. That's a good thing when it's actually, you know, scaring the shit out of me.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I was thinking, maybe Bagul is in the house now.
No, he's not.
That's great. Okay. Anyway, I hope... Do you know what that was?
Yeah, it was the dirt bike down the road.
Okay.
His goof next door likes to ride it around his backyard.
Okay, man,
like
that
he owns
sounded
the
like it
place.
was in the house. That freaked me the hell out, too. Okay, this is so poorly timed in the conversation. Okay,
Great way to start the review.
So, with all that being said, I was nervous about this movie because, I mean, I know I should have known immediately that it's a horror movie sequel. Don't worry about it. I know, I should have said that. But for a while there, I was concerned. Because I actually gave it the benefit of the doubt that it would be in the same vein. And we are now kind of thrust into what's clearly a different territory, and let me tell you what it is. Because this is when we get into this is pretty much everything I talk about every time a horror movie comes out.
Yep.
Let's think about the opening of the first movie, where the scene opens, and it's the people in the tree, and that little score is playing, and then they drop down, and they hang, and then the title comes up, and then into the movie. And then you're like, well...
That was effective.
Oh, okay.
Really effective.
So, second movie looks like it's going to do the same thing. So, we get our opening scene where we have 3 people on crosses in the middle of a cornfield, and they are all burning alive and screaming. And then there's a cut, and then it's like, ooh, here comes the title. Because that's just what I say in my mind. That's how I talk in my mind. But no, there's a second scene. The people burning alive on the crosses was not enough. This movie's gonna amp it up a little bit. Yeah, we're gonna get a second scene before we get the title. What could this be? Are they really, really gonna push the envelope now? Let's find out. Oh, it's a jump scene you can see coming from a mile away. Then we get the title. Because the people burning on the crosses was not enough, apparently.
No.
Okay. So, the director of this movie, who is named... Kieran Foy?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Was watching the first movie. Now, mind you, maybe we can't necessarily blame him, because Scott Derrickson, who directed the original movie, actually is a credited writer on this. So, I don't know whose fault it is, but somebody was watching the first movie and saw that creepy-ass opening and thought, man, where's the fucking jump scare? I'm already impatient. When I make the sequel, I'm gonna do that. Then people will really know what they're in store for.
Yep.
Fucking prick. So, that's what happened. Now, I just got like a sudden whiff of cologne. Are you sure there's not somebody else in this house?
No, there's no one in the house.
Oh my god. Okay. So, anyway, we get our next scene, and I kind of... okay, with that aside, it's kind of like, okay, that's one fail. Maybe that'll be the last fail, and everything will be smooth sailing from here. You know.
It's air freshener in the house, by the way, if you're curious.
Okay. So, it's like the Warrens. There's always an explanation for everything.
Yes.
There's your inevitable Conjuring reference in the horror movie review.
Of course.
Now, we get this next scene when they're in the supermarket. And it's Shannon Salzman and the two kids. You might know her from either A Knight's Tale or 40 Days and 40 Nights with Josh Hartnett, maybe, or The Rules of Attraction. The girl that Vanderbeek wanted from a distance.
She's in One Missed Call, too. That's the reason why I thought she was in horror.
Okay. So she's right at home.
Yep.
Yay. Wow, I remember nothing about that movie. I saw it when it came out, but I don't remember shit about it.
Same here.
So they're in the supermarket, and I kind of start to maybe give it the benefit of the doubt because they're kind of really doing something now. And it's this, when they're in the supermarket, the camera does this thing where it's kind of like, we're watching them just kind of go through the supermarket, just being a little family that they are. But the camera placement is always like from behind a shelf or like it's peeking around a corner. And that's kind of a cool way to make you feel like they're being watched and give you kind of a, an uneasy feel. But then that supermarket scene kind of goes really dumb really fast. But what was the secret, what was the code word?
Rutabaga.
Yeah. When I say rutabaga, I want you to run. That's the code that we've established. So I'm going to say rutabaga, and then you guys are going to grab my hands and we're all going to run. And even though we're all running already, I'm going to scream it again as we're running down the aisle.
It makes me sad that I remembered the title of that safe word.
Well, that was only a couple of hours ago.
True.
So if this had been like a few days ago, then I'd be worried about you.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so then we realize when they go home that we're dealing with one of these characters, which is, now I know if you're living your real life, you're generally not under the impression you're in a horror movie. If you don't know, your surroundings and shit. But let's be honest, the writer knew that these people were in a horror movie, and he sure as shit is going to show you. Yeah. Because it's one of those things where they just also they happen to be stalked by somebody. They happen to live out in the middle of nowhere temporarily. And she likes to work in abandoned churches and pretty much any places that are dimly lit with shadowy places. And that's just where she likes to go to do whatever. Was it even her job to be hanging around in that church? What was she?
She's like Magic Mike. She basically does like the furniture building stuff.
Yeah,
because Douche Canoe brings it up later on.
Yeah,
in the movie.
I thought he was just saying that like as like a generic family thing. But yeah, okay, yeah, I guess that is her job.
Her first scene, that's what you see. In that abandoned church that is connected to the old farmhouse that they shouldn't be in.
Right. Well, we'll get to the places they shouldn't be soon enough.
Yes.
Now there is. Okay, the thing about it was I was telling you we were the only ones in there. It was the very first showing of this movie. This first showing Friday, and fucking nobody.
Made no money.
I kind of thought maybe there'd be, because obviously school has started and everything, but I figured there'd at least be like one or two older people, and there's usually always that one old guy. But no, this was an abandoned wasteland of this movie. And let's hope that's kind of what its box office kind of mirrored.
It might, based on critics' response rate.
I was talking to you in my normal voice.
Yes,
saying,
indeed.
I was concerned that there was going to be a pacing issue because this can be a problem, but it could also be a good thing, depending. It does kind of start right away. It's like the movie's been on for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and we're already fucking watching the kill tapes. So, I said that's either a good way to get it really going, or we're going to have some serious pace issues if we get started too fast. Because there's going to have to be a middle here where just not fucking shit happens. But the thing about it is we have this ghost kid who wears a vest and a tie, who just kind of sits on the kid's bed. What was the kid's name?
Milo.
No, the real kid, Dylan.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
Dylan and Zach.
Yes. Okay. Zach was the bad kid.
Yes.
Okay. So we're supposed to assume, I guess, for a while now, Dylan has been being visited by Milo in the night, and he's bringing him down to watch the tapes so that Bagul can take him. Yeah. I did like that little thing where each kid has done a tape themselves, and that kid is there as like, you know, the ghostly figure to present it to him and say, "This is my tape." I kind of like that concept where they actually, you know, it's from the opposite perspective the other movie was. It's kind of like the way The Purge worked. Yeah,
there's a reason for the kids to be there because they're literally filming what they're watching.
Mm-hmm. So it first off, it does what many sequels do. It defies the enigma mystery of the first movie, so that's out. And speaking of that, another thing I love while watching the tapes, this is where it starts to show that the movie is a few years old now, so I can't remember. Was the playing music while watching the tapes part of the thing when Ethan Hawke was doing it? Because I don't really remember that.
You mean having the phonograph literally by the projector? No, I don't believe so.
So the whole deal is that you know that thing I always talk about where I say when you're watching found footage movies, which obviously this is not, but the movies within movies are. The thing is you can't really do jump scares because you don't have a score to work with. Well, this movie changes that up. So what they do is the kids actually have a record player. Because, you know, all creepy horror movies do, like the few that always come to mind are, there's the use of Quicksilver Girl in The Strangers. Mm-hmm. There's the Claw in 30 Days of Night. There's always a record player lurking somewhere. Because, like I said, it's going to be, let's put this song so the views for it will blow up on YouTube. But no, what the kids actually do is they have a record player and they actually play creepy music while they watch the tapes.
But my favorite line you said to me was like, "So we're just going to sit around and we're going to listen to creepy music together."
Yes, and then this is when we started kind of brainstorming on how this works. My theory is that, because this is one of those movies where you have to kill every ounce of unknown that was in the first movie that made it so creepy.
Correct.
So not only do we get Dr. Exposition guy who says, "Hey, come over here and let me tell you everything about Bagul." Even, you know, we don't have Vincent D'Onofrio anymore. I guess he like just said, "You know what? I'm just not going to do this anymore."
I got other bit parts to have now.
So he's here, and we basically get the whole, you know, he's basically Pennywise. He's been popping up in random places of time throughout, you know, however long. And then you've probably heard this complaint a lot already. How many times we see him.
Yeah.
If we were doing Oscar category placement, you could probably put the guy that plays Bagul in leading.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even fucking say anything. He's just there. Every time a scene goes quiet or there's something dark or whatever, even when he's in a still photograph, there has to be something loud and him jumping and being all up in your face.
Guy playing his guitar really hardcore.
Yeah, there's even like, there's kind of a scene that kind of felt like it was the counterpart to the scene in the first movie, where, another scene that sends a fucking chill down my spine when Ethan Hawke has the frozen image of Bagul on his computer facing this way, and then when Hawke looks away, Bagul fucking looks at him and then turns back before he notices. And there was like maybe like a little creepy score when that happened to make you go eh, and all that. But of course, when he sees Bagul in the picture in this movie, he fucking jumps out of the picture and then disappear. Like, it's not once again, like Pennywise. It's not the way he did it. It's just kind of jump and roar and then disappear thing. One of my personal favorites was the flashlight in the hallway scene.
That's in the trailer.
Where, naturally, where he keeps thinking he sees like the outline of children, and he keeps flashing, and then suddenly Bagul's right there, and then here's how the scene plays out though. I'm not sure exactly what Bagul can do to you, but apparently he can scare you so hard that you just fly. Because this is the way this scene plays out is, you know, the jump scare happens, and Bagul's face is right here next to the guy. We get like a point of view shot of it. And the very next cut, it goes from Bagul's face right up here to the camera to the guy like flying through the wall. Did he shove him? Did he pick him up and throw him? Or did he just fucking scare him backwards?
He scared him backwards.
That's the way I like to think.
The rule is you scare forwards, not backwards. That's typical haunted house character stuff.
And then, just the more we started to talk about it, the less scary it became. Like, the whole making up theories about it follows. And just how the fuck that shit works.
Yeah.
We started thinking, I came up with this little theory. I'm beginning to think that before Bagul... Bagul was a person before he became a demon. We're going to say that.
Okay, makes sense.
Because even though we still, exposition the shit out of his backstory, we still don't really know where he came from, if I remember correctly.
1973 is when they mentioned in the first,
So I'm beginning, just when you start to think about this, the movie kind of starts to lose its luster a little bit. You think about the concept where you have the children, the children are here, and then they take the camera, and then they shoot all the stuff, and then obviously it's family being happy, and then abrupt cut, and family being dead.
Yeah.
So, there's so much stuff that has to go, and of course they have to show other kids the tapes. You go, yeah, we're taking you now. So, the thing about it is, we have Bagul here, who had to have there has to be a beginning to this.
Yeah, of course.
Which started with just him. And then the kids he recruited from then on. And you start to think back, and you see all these different ideas of... You have Bagul here and his fucking face and his fucking hair and his weird little suit, or whatever that is. And then he has to be teaching them these things. There has to be some tutorial where he's teaching them how to use the camera. And then once they do that, he probably helps them set up the traps too. That was really bothering you, but eventually we learn he does help them out, apparently.
You saw that in the church.
But then he has to go through and say, okay, now I don't know what Bagul's voice would sound like, but this is how you edit it and piece it together. Make sure you do it really well so the scare works really good. And then he has to teach them how to put it in the projector. And, I don't know, and I just have this humorous image in my head of, Bagul seems like the kind of guy, they're like, don't make him angry, so it's like, so he's probably the kind of guy where if you don't put it in the projector the right way, he does it in a really condescending way to show you,
Okay.
Just all of this is just taking away any type of fear that the whole situation
For
has.
all of the people that claim that Scary Movie killed Scream for what they did in the movies, I will tell you right now, Haunted House killed Bagul.
But now, here's something else. Actually, there's a couple more things.
The
hero of this movie is the cop from the first movie that Ethan Hawke was all buddy-buddy with. I guess because they needed some kind of connection to the first movie. But the issue here is that this guy is kind of... I don't know what the fuck this guy is. He's half bumbling idiot, half I know everything guy. You can't really have both of those things. You have to pick one of those. Because for 1 minute he's like, bumbling comedy guy. And then the next minute he's the one with all the bright ideas, like when they try to play it up for comedy, like when the radio goes off. He's the one that says, you need to destroy that now. And it's used as like a comedic thing, as if saying, we're going against the normal thing where people do stupid things. He's a smart character, and he's realizing, the horror cliches before they happen. We're very clever when we write this shit. But then he is also the guy where, this is the point I need to bring up the subplot that's happening here, where the person that, she and her children are running away from her abusive husband. And there's a whole custody thing going on here. So, here's the thing. You've probably heard a lot of excuses. This should be an ultimate red flag in this genre. Whether it's found footage or whether it's staying in a haunted house or whatever, there always has to be an excuse for something in your concept. You always have to have an excuse as to why nobody puts the fucking camera down in found footage, and you always have to have an excuse as to why people don't leave the haunted house. Well, that's pretty much the whole point of this custody thing. Okay? They know about all the murders. He was, like, fucking there for the Ethan Hawke one. He knows all that shit that went down. And he's well aware of everything. He's got the newspaper clippings. He's got, you know, all that shit. The maps marked. All that shit.
Like a serial killer.
Yeah, he knows exactly what's going on. So what happens here is we learn that we see all the fucking symbols and everything. We know shit is going to happen in this house. But this guy, who knows everything that's going on, gets personally attached to them and says, you can't leave because of the custody battle. If you leave the house, they'll take your kids away. Now, the husband's a really bad dude.
Yeah.
For sure. But, I think there's... I mean, I know you can't necessarily explain fucking a ghoul to the cops or anything, but...
That'd be funny to watch.
You would think you'd take some kind of action and not just say, well, we gotta stay in the murder house because you guys will be taken away if we don't. You just kinda gotta choose one evil over the other.
Death, custody, death, custody.
Yeah. The husband may beat the shit out of you and condescend you and possibly rape you. And that shit's bad, don't get me wrong. But then there's chopping you up and filming it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a little different. Just a little different. But make whatever decisions you will. Go right ahead. Because that's going to be your main conflict. You just do what you need to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is sticking out like a sore thumb in the plot of Sinister 2.
Yeah. Okay, having said all this, it wasn't as bad as I thought going in. Because I was hearing some bad things about this movie going in. I was expecting... It's not Gallows level.
No.
When you've seen The Gallows, this movie is totally fine.
Yes, that's complete agreement.
And there are... Still this year, there's a lot worse horror movies. Fucking Clown. Jesus. But no, it's still fucking... It's still, you know... You still got the first one to compare it to, and that makes it look really bad. And... Yeah, there's a most of this movie is just not working. I mean, there is still... It doesn't totally abandon the atmosphere, like is what I heard happened. I mean, none of those jump scares work. Like, usually there's at least one stray one where they put it in just the right place, and you're like, oh, okay. But no, I think you pretty much see all of them, and none of them are really used for any particular purpose other than the bullshit they always are. So, that's the best compliment I can give it. Is I was expecting Gallows level, but it's just your average, ordinary, bad horror movie. That's it.
What about the kill tapes this time around? I think they're a lot more elaborate this time around.
Yeah, I didn't. It took me a second to realize what was going on with the rats, but once I figured it out, it's elaborate, but it's still pretty, you know, it's admirably sick.
Yeah.
So we can say that, I guess. But there was no. It's the whole transitioning from, you know, murder tapes that almost seem legit to fucking, you know, saw traps.
Yeah.
So that's the territory they're heading in. I mean, surely hopefully they won't, but if they do decide they want to keep going, that's basically what it's going to turn into, is all the fucking tapes are going to be fucking saw traps now. And, you know, they'll just keep adding shit to Bugle's backstory, and that'll probably be about it. But maybe they'll be done now.
I think if
an empty showing the first thing Friday might be a sign, I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. But okay. So I got all paranoid for nothing when then I realized they were making a sequel. So it's all good now. It's all good.
This isn't.
Our second movie is Hitman. It's Hitman Agent 47 now. To differentiate it from the other one. I don't know. I guess it's what is it? Are they trying to reboot it? I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Well, I'm sure this one will do just as well as the last one. So, there is a video game that I once saw a cover for in a store.
You haven't even at least played one game?
No, I haven't.
I have.
That these movies are based on. And they've been around for a while. And I think my brother rented one once, a long time ago. But I didn't see it or know anything about it. So the extent of my knowledge of this property is the Timothy Olyphant movie from 2007.
Yes.
Which I saw, but I can't tell you one fucking thing that happens in it. I've got no memory of that movie whatsoever. Olga Kurylenko was the girl in it. I remember that. That's it. So, that movie totally... I don't know anybody that liked that movie. So we just kind of skip ahead 8 years, and they're gonna try it again, because that works out. So what do? You replace Timothy Olyphant with Rupert Friend. I knew Rupert Friend was supposed to be in this movie. I didn't realize he was actually playing fucking 47. I didn't realize that. So, the one thing... I've seen him in quite a few movies and fucking Homeland, but... I can't help but wonder, every time he was on screen, I knew exactly who he was, but every time I saw him, I couldn't help but think, why do I have a feeling about 50% of the people that see this movie are going to ask themselves if he's Orlando Bloom? Because there's a resemblance there.
There's a nice resemblance, actually.
What?
There's a nice resemblance, as in,
oh,
yes.
Okay. I thought you said that'd be nice. It's like, Orlando Bloom would not have added fucking shit to this.
Might have been entertaining to see him do some of his stunts, though.
So, talking about them rebooting Hitman, which sounds as desperate as it is as desperate as it sounds. Is what
yes,
I would
say.
Indeed. They give you a blatant clue right away. This was glorious. This image. I wish this was on my computer so I could have screenshot it, printed it out, and framed it. This image. Because you see a movie, like, you hear the word reboot, and you see a property that Hollywood assumes is popular. And you figure it's just a cash grab, right?
Mm.
And then you kind of watch the movie, and you think they kind of try to hide it. Like, they try to think that... It kind of tries to look like they're doing something worthwhile, but it's just a fucking cash grab. They're hiding.
Yeah.
No shame.
Not at all.
No, listen to this. This movie absolutely wants you to know that it is the product of Hollywood in general just looking for money. And the sign I'm referring to is, we have our opening, and of course we don't see him right away, but our opening is going on, and shit's going down, and things are happening, and he's just kind of we don't see him, he's like in the shadows and shit, and just everything is doing its thing, and the beginning credits are happening as this, very thrown on there. And then, finally, shit gets real, and Agent 47 appears from out of the shadows, pointing his gun. And the way this went down, in case you were not sure this movie was made strictly for money, as he comes out and does his big reveal, a long list of producers just comes down with his intro. And that's when it makes you realize, okay, this is nothing more than a fucking product of Hollywood. Attempt at a product from Hollywood. So, that is our opening shot of him. The movie just keeps going from there. And as you can imagine, yes, most of the movie from here on out is a bunch of... This was the sad part. Is I do kind of feel like this director maybe could have been able to do something if he was, number one, if he had better writing, number two, if he had a little more, if he was a little more competent, I guess. Because the issue here was I was watching these action scenes happen, and this, to its credit, this is not one of those movies that you would probably think it is, where it's just, like most action movies nowadays that are really bad, which is just a bunch of aimless shootouts, just endlessly. Like what fucking Vice was. People just fucking firing at people and nobody getting hit, and just everlasting. This isn't necessarily that. They try to do creative things with the action. There's not just shootouts. There's interesting things they try with car chases and blowing shit up. He kills people in really creative ways. Bodies get flung around everywhere. And the disappointing thing was, the action in this movie probably could have been relatively top-notch if it wasn't so fucking clearly animated. Like, because there were things that would happen and I was like, oh man, that would have been so cool if it looked even remotely real. Damn it! That's the car that blows up and then hits the bridge. It was like, God, that looks like a shot out of Lockout. If it hadn't, it would have looked so much better. The dude's falling from great distances and bouncing off the stair rails. That would have been really, shoot 'em up styled over the top deaths if it weren't for the fact that they just looked like fucking video game characters. That's the thing. I know you're probably going to say, it's a video game movie, just take it as a thing. Well, that's the thing, though. It's a video game movie and not a fucking video game. They should look like people. But, people will throw that defense out there anyway. So, we are introduced to another character. Somebody who I didn't know was in this movie until like 2 minutes before it started, because you told me.
Yeah.
Zachary Quinto's in this movie. And I was like, oh, okay. I assume he's the villain, because there's not really anything else he can do, I imagine. And that is when this movie takes on a couple of personas you've probably seen before. There is a whole other list of cliches to go through that are in this movie, but I'd first off like to start with just pulling plot lines entirely.
Oh, God.
Just recently, a couple of times, actually, we've talked about the first 2 Terminator movies. I did that versus on it, and then I mentioned it a lot in the fucking Genesis review. Yeah. So, this is how this movie plays out. We have Agent 47, who is seeking out a woman. And Agent 47, of course, is this seemingly inhuman, emotionless killing machine, who just kind of walks around and kills people. Just unstoppable. And right now his target is a woman. So he is chasing her until a male protagonist finds his way into the story and rescues her, and then they run while he chases them. That sounds pretty familiar, right? Mm. Okay, just imagine if Quinto had said, "Come with me if you want to live," when he showed up. Then does it sound even more familiar? Okay, but we're not done yet. So, that's the plot of the Terminator, right? Mm. Okay. Well, get a load of this now. It turns out, this isn't really a spoiler either, because this is all kind of the intro. I'll bet the trailers give this away anyway, if I had to guess. It turns out, maybe, possibly, that who we think is the savior is actually the threat, and who seems to be the threat is actually the savior, and they've switched them around on us. Does that sound a little familiar? Well, it gets better, because it turns out that not only is Zachary Quinto our villain now, but he happens to have an indestructible liquid metal under his skin.
Yeah.
Now are we sounding familiar? So, and then the movie goes from there. And as far as dialogue is concerned, by the way, I was trying to remember last night. I'd already forgotten after we'd gone through American Ultra, because this movie was the first one last night. Mm. What exactly the exchange was, but obviously Quinto has been shot in the hotel. This is still when we think he's good. But he's going to be back because he was third in the credits. And he's a big name. They're not going to kill him 20 minutes in without him coming back as a villain. See John Voight in the first Mission Impossible, among many fucking other movies. You don't kill that big of a name in the first 20 minutes without them coming back as a villain. It just does not happen. So, the thing about it, unless you're Julianne Moore in Children of Men, then you're not fucking coming back. But that's a totally different movie from this. But anyway, he comes back, and it's revealed that he is the villain, obviously, in a set piece that I'm pretty sure was taken from Shoot 'Em Up, actually. If you've seen Shoot 'Em Up and you see this, you know exactly what fucking sets I'm talking about. But they have this exchange where he says, like, "I thought you were dead," and he's like, "Only as dead as you are," or something. And then he says, "Why aren't you dead?" And this is basically Quinto explaining why he has an indestructible metal underneath him. And the fullest explanation we get from him? Because I'm special. Which, by the way, ignites a fight. Mm. If you thought the scene in The Dark Knight Rises was bad, when "No, I came back to stop you" is what ignited the fight, Quinto saying, "Because I'm special," is what ignites this one.
That is highly logical.
So there's that, and now we have there's a lot of cliches real quick here. There is a strobe light shootout. This is one of those movies where you have the guy who they go to the hotel room and they're trying to figure things out, so they tape maps and files to the wall and they study them. This is one of those movies. Every single time the scene changes, a little location is typed up on the at the bottom of the screen, as if it really matters, or you're going to even remember where we were in that one scene that's not even really that important. We have the woman character, the female protagonist. There might be a scene where she's in the shower for no reason. And there might be a scene... Listen to this, okay? There's really no in-between here. She's out doing her thing. 47 is coming to kill her, supposedly. Quinto comes in and saves the day. And then the switch happens, and then everything happens. They're on the lane, everybody's looking for them, etc. Of course, this hotel has a pool in it. And of course... somewhere in all this hullabaloo, she managed to pack a sexy bathing suit to, in slow-mo, go into the pool at the hotel.
Yeah.
A scene that has no bearing on anything whatso goddamn ever. Oh, and in case the multiple shots of her body didn't inform you that she was a female, check this. I heard female is supposed to be, like, inappropriate and offensive now when you say it. I don't know. But I'm saying this as the writers of this movie. That is why. They're in the elevator, and the big badass shootout's about to happen. And she's real hardcore now. So, here's what happens, because, you're impressed because she's a woman. Women don't do that. Well, get this. She's got her hair down. She's got long hair, okay? So, this throwdown is about to happen. This big-ass shootout. This final big confrontation. And what does she do to show you the hardcore badass she has become and that shit's about to go down in this building and a big climax is going to happen? She dramatically ties her hair back in a ponytail. Yeah, this is the kind of movie we're dealing with. So, more on the subject of Quinto, I would just like to say, why did he do his first few lines in a Benedict Cumberbatch voice?
I noticed that.
It's because if I remember correctly, Quinto's not British, right? But when he did, maybe they spent too much time together on Star Trek Into Darkness, I don't know, but... or when maybe he was beating the shit out of him, he accidentally possessed his voice or something. But yeah, the first time we see Quinto in this movie, I'm pretty sure he was doing a Benedict Cumberbatch impression for his first few lines, and then he just talks normally for the rest of the movie. Maybe I was imagining things, I don't know. So, yes, there's many stupid things in there. There's probably a lot of cliches I missed. Oh, the changing disguises. This is great. Here's what happens here. Obviously you have to have those movies where you need to escape, so you find a random guard guy that happens to be there and you attack him, and there's a cut, and then the next thing you walk out in his uniform that fits you perfectly, right? Well, here's the thing, is you have to do that as many times as possible because this is the kind of movie the director thought he was making. He's like, I've seen that in movies. That's what you do when you make movies, you put scenes like that in. It just doesn't look like a movie if that shit's not in there. So, what happens here is he has taken the dude out, and he's gotten him in his uniform that fits perfectly, of course, and he's walking down the hallway, and then there's a whole line of soldier dudes coming this way in uniform. And then one of them trails off and notices him and says, like, dude, you alright? And before all he has to do is be in this uniform and walk right out the door that is right in front of him. But instead, and the dude did not even find him out or anything, the dude just said, dude, you right? He could have just had to say, like, yep, and then left. Because the door is right there. But no, he, for some reason, attacks soldier dude, puts on his uniform, which fits him perfectly, and then walks out the door. Who is he hiding from?
I don't think
that he wasn't hiding from in the other uniform anyway. And if there's something that can detect him, that he's worried about seeing him in the uniform, they clearly saw him attack soldier guy and steal his shit. But that's not important. What happened was the director said, I've seen these types of movies before, and that's the kind of stuff that happens in them. You take people's disguises. That has to be in there, or it won't look like a real movie, guys.
So much like the video game, though.
Fuck it. Okay, so it's just another one of those movies where you know every scene that's coming. Pretty much every next scene, you know what's going to happen based on the scene before it. That's just what happens. And you have, there was another piece of dialogue I really loved. What was it? Yes, it was Quinto saying his name. Because this is brilliant, by the way. This writing is just, it totally deserves to be something that was created with millions of dollars and put on a movie screen for people to actually fucking see. Zachary Quinto introduces himself and he comes up all mysterious and shit and says, I'm John Smith. And then shit goes down and everything, and then they get to the hotel and they're hiding out. This line alone deserves a placement in some kind of writing hall of fame, but there's more. But the line I'm talking about is, she asks him with all the sincerity of her heart, is your real name John Smith?
Jesus.
But here's the best part. He says, no, my name's Brian. And that's established, but she still spends the whole movie calling him John. It's like, what was even why did that... It doesn't matter, does it?
No.
Okay. So, I think that covers everything. Is that about it? Did I miss anything? The best part about this all, though, is, I really don't. Maybe there's some gamers that come across this video going, Hitman, it's like the best thing ever. You're like fucking stupid, man. But in my personal social circle, I don't know anybody that is, still into this. But that's the thing, is when the movie came out in 2007, I don't really know anybody. I think there were a couple of people that gave like maybe a fraction of a fuck, but it never really amounted to anything, and it was nothing anybody was that excited about. And I really don't know that this is pretty much, the same reaction. So, but regardless, we're going to leave a lot of stuff open. We're going to set up for another one because they think that's just going to happen. So, there. And with the way things have been going with the unnecessary sequels beating out the ones we need, maybe I'm underestimating it. Maybe it actually will happen. I don't know. But I will just say there is a mid-credit scene in this movie. There you go. Okay. So, is that it? By the way, isn't it kind of funny that we went through this whole Terminator thing when I just used that example last week with The Man from U.N.C.L.E.? Mm-hmm. There's kind of a pattern going on here. We're trying to bring it back in so many different ways. Yeah. Okay. Why don't we leave it to James Cameron, people? If something Terminator related must happen ever again, let's just wait for James Cameron to say, I'll do it. And if that doesn't happen, then that's the way it's meant to be. Otherwise, let's just not do that. Our third movie is American Ultra. I wasn't quite sure how to take this. It's one of those movies where I had heard about it and I wasn't even sure it was going to be a wide release.
Did not look wide at all.
But yeah, well, it was a lot more than what I thought it was, because I didn't realize it was like an action movie. I thought it was strictly a stoner comedy, and that was about it. But there's kind of a lot of other things going on here. Max Landis, who is the son of John Landis, wrote this, and he also wrote Chronicle. So with that, I was kind of thinking, okay, let's see what happens. And we are introduced to, this is like the second or third pairing now of Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart. It's the one after Adventureland, and then they're going to be in Woody Allen's new movie together. So that'll be their third. This is their second, I think. I keep thinking she was in Zombieland, but she wasn't. So we open, and yes, it's just it plays itself up for a while as just a stoner thing, and there was actually don't get ahead of me here, because this is not what I mean. I don't mean it in that sense by any mean. I just mean this is just kind of the vibe I got from it. I'm not saying it's anything like this whatsoever. I'm just saying this is the vibe I got during the scenes of her and Eisenberg just hanging out at the house and getting high. Just by the way it was shot and with everything that was going on, I was getting a real Inherent Vice vibe.
Oh yeah, I can see that
from those scenes. The scenes where Walking's just kind of hanging out at his house and getting high. It's almost like they kind of took inspiration from that. I don't know. Maybe this was filming before Inherent Vice came out, which is possible. I don't know, but that's what it felt like. And then it kind of turns into this big, giant, extremely bloody and violent action movie after setting itself up as a stoner comedy for a good 20 minutes. Where he's triggered by Connie Britton, and we learn that he is this... Do you remember, depending on which Manchurian Candidate you saw, or both of them, when they were going to activate Shaw in the Manchurian Candidate, there was like a trigger thing that turned him into, like, you know, assassin mode.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this movie is. And she triggers him because Topher Grace is the big, just promoted agent guy who's basically biting off more he can chew and saying, we're just going to wipe them out and kill all of them because this was a failed experiment. But for some reason, Connie Britton wants to save him. So she sets him off and sends him on a giant killing spree. And you have Topher Grace and all his people, his killing machines, one of which is Walton Goggins, as a psychopathic guy who can't stop laughing, so much so that his name is Laugher. And then it just turns into this big thing that doesn't seem to always know what it wants to be or what it even is in the current time. Because it kind of seems like it's almost trying to do like a B-movie thing sometimes, kind of like the whole ricocheting the bullet off the frying pan thing. But then sometimes it tries to go into really serious drama. And then, like I said, the action gets really, really the action kind of reminded me of a slightly more over-the-top version of The Equalizer.
I got kick-ass vibe from it.
Yeah, you said that on the way out. I don't quite. Maybe a little bit.
Kind of the way it was shot.
Yeah, and this is one of those movies where I know it's supposed to be kind of, you know, from the perspective of somebody who's high and stuff like that, but sometimes, this is one of those movies where it tries so hard to be frenetic that sometimes that whole aspect of it can get a little annoying. Something I meant to mention in Hitman that I forgot to mention is also in this, so we'll just pick right up. There was some of it in Sinister, too. It was just a whole thing this fucking week. This whole thing where you edit together really, really flashing images that happen all at once. You know what I'm talking about? They're really headache-inducing. There's usually something really loud on the soundtrack happening, and it's just a whole bunch of unrelated images just flashing before your eyes that will eventually possibly mean something, but it's more so us maybe seeing in the character's mind or whatever. And it's just really unpleasant. Let me just ask you something. Do you know of a good movie? Just a good movie at all, where that has been utilized? There are a couple come to mind. The Crow kind of did it, but not in as annoying of a fashion. But a lot of movies do it now, and it just really makes your movie annoying and needlessly frenetic, even when it's trying to be. You don't want it to do that way, because we do. I've been on this thing lately where I'm trying to tell people I don't understand the idea. There are times where you can start your movie at the end and then you work your way back around and come full circle. But for the most part, I don't understand why people do that, because it basically kills a lot of suspense. Well, this movie takes the extra. This movie kind of, pushes a little extra to kind of kill the suspense. And what it does, like I said, I think it's trying to be clever in some way. I don't really know. I don't really know what the purpose of doing it this way is. But you have to have a really good eye for anything to be technically spoiled for you, I guess. But even so, I don't quite understand the method in showing your entire movie quickly in reverse before playing it forward.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a very odd approach to take to an opening scene. Was to actually say, here is the whole movie, and here's everything that goes down, real quick, flashing before your eyes and giving you a fucking seizure. And then we're gonna play you the movie regularly, and we'll circle back around to this. And you'll get to see all the shit you just saw just in regular play mode. I don't really get that directorial choice, or what in God's name its purpose could possibly be. But, you know, it's still a fun movie. There's still, I wish the comedy had been funnier. It doesn't really stray away from its genres too much. There's more or less an even mix of all the shit that's going on. There's just, the comedy should have been funnier, is the only problem. There were a couple of cases where I was trying to kind of figure out if something was supposed to be funny or not, because you're never quite sure. But there are some stuff that's really funny, and that's mainly due to Jesse Eisenberg and his impeccable ability to deliver a funny line. It's worth noting, believe it or not, she's getting to that point. People are starting to notice. I've still, like, even after Camp X-Ray and stuff like that, I've still been on the road. I've still been having trouble getting on board this Kristen Stewart's actually a decent actress thing. It's just, because I get that she's, you know, doing that and taking the risk and stuff, but she's still never done anything that really made me, you know, think, okay, I think she's got something. But that, of all the times for that to happen to me, she's really, really good in this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's really, really, really good in this. Like, I couldn't believe it. This is even after Camp X-Ray and On the Road and all that other stuff, where she's really trying to show that she's got something, this is the time where I finally said, yeah, maybe. So, yes, I do think this definitely shows promise for her that people are starting to see now, but I didn't see until now in her. But I'm interested to see what else she does now. Now that I always have this to relate to, knowing that she's capable of something. There's been some hate thrown toward Topher Grace's direction, as there usually is lately. About him being, you know, a bit over the top and miscast, and, you know, the whole laughably bad craze everybody likes to say. Especially when you play a villain in a movie like this. And you're an actor that's only played a villain like 2 more times, one of which you were heavily ridiculed for. I think we all know what that is. Do I even need to say it? I think it kind of, I mean, I won't say his performance like totally really works, but I think it works in the concept that he has just gotten this job, and he's hearing from a lot of people that he's unfit for the job. So I think that kind of clears up the casting of him in this place. But it's still a little, he goes for it maybe a little too much in a couple of scenes. But for the most part, it didn't bother me in the way I'm sure most people will blow it out of proportion. I think there was actually one review that compared him to Eddie Redmayne in Jupiter Ascending. It's nothing like that.
No.
Like, that's just, you know, people really love to blow shit out of proportion like that when they have nothing else to talk about or write about. So, it's really not that bad. And he gets a lot more hate than he really should. I thought this is kind of a spoiler for that movie, but I actually kind of liked him in Predators in that last 10 minutes or so. Where his character isn't what you think he is. I thought he was effective there, so I think he's got it in him, more so than people have been giving him credit for, but for some reason he's just an easy target for people. But, you know, it happens. But yeah, the main problem, though, is that there's a whole lot of tone shifting, because there are moments that actually try to legitimately be really serious, and like I said, when the violence kicks in, it's like really hardcore. But there's still, you know, there's John Leguizamo has a small part as an ally who's a little too paranoid, and you also find, I've forgotten his real name, but it's Huel from Breaking Bad. He was also in Leguizamo's place. And the direction is not necessarily off, except for the tone juggling. But we have when the action kicks in, it's you know, there's a couple. It's not going to be everybody's thing. I hear it's not getting that well received, and I can totally understand where that's coming from. But it still felt like they had enough of a hold on it. And it's definitely entertaining enough to where, you know, it was fine to me. I did like the kind of long take shots. I don't think they were actual long takes, but they were made to look like long takes in the confrontation in the grocery store at the end. Which was kind of giving me flashbacks of Hot Fuzz. It's not nearly that well executed, but it was just reminding me of it to give you an idea. But yeah, the combo of all these things may be off-putting to a lot of people, and I can totally get that. Like, if you say this is... Like, if there are people who totally don't like this movie, it's not something that'll surprise me, and I won't necessarily jump to defend it or anything. But it was fine to me. It was... Yeah. It's nothing that bad.
It's probably the only redeemable thing on this video.
Yeah. Well.
And honestly, I've never really... It's the Megan Fox thing with me, with Kristen Stewart. I never really found either one of them, like, very attractive, and then I see one role of theirs, and I'm like, okay, fine, I see this. For me, that's exactly what this was for Kristen Stewart. I look at her, she's a lot more attractive than in the past to me.
Okay, our fourth movie is called 10,000 Saints. There have been... All week, I've been calling it fucking 10,000 Nights for some reason.
Oh, God.
Saints. It is definitely Saints. And the reason I'm doing this one and the next movie is because I thought it would be nice to... Because both of these movies are at my disposal, because 10,000 Saints is on VOD right now. It came out with Cop Car last week. And Cymbeline is on DVD right now, I believe. Well, yeah. So, I thought it would be nice, since we had Sinister, to honor our fallen protagonist from the first movie, that we do an Ethan Hawke double feature. And I was thinking, Ethan Hawke's been making some pretty interesting choices lately. This should be fun. Let's check it out. Let's watch Ethan Hawke do his thing and just, you know, be impressed. Well, in Ethan Hawke's case, that was pretty much right. But as far as the rest of the movies... we'll start with 10,000 Saints, though. This is a movie that is set in the 80s. And we have a kid named Jude, who his parents are Ethan Hawke and Julianne Nicholson. And the opening scene is the kid going to see, before he grows up, he goes to see Ethan Hawke, who's going to give him a little pep talk, because a divorce is going to happen. And it is worth noting that Ethan Hawke is also a weed dealer who often uses his product. So he's very, very laid back about pretty much everything. So he sits down with Jude and he basically says, "Your mom and I are getting divorced. By the way, you're adopted." and it goes from there. But he still tries to be fun. He says, you know, I'm always going to be your dad and stuff like that, and it doesn't matter who your real dad is. It's just, you know, we're your parents and stuff like that. And he's basically playing his part. He's playing a stoned version of his character in Boyhood. That's exactly who this guy is. This guy's less responsible too, because he has no other job. He's a weed dealer, and that's what he does. It's like a whole underground business that he has, and he actually encourages his son to smoke weed with him. It's like a bonding thing. But you know, I guess that's okay now in most states, or it's getting there. But the thing about it is, and he still tries to do the cool dad thing. Like when he tries to calm him down about being adopted, and he's like, "What's that show with the rich white guy and the black kids?" And he's like, "You mean Different Strokes?" He's like, "Yeah, they're adopted. Lee Majors, he's adopted."
I like the fact they dropped Lee Majors' name.
And then cut forward, and that kid has grown up into Asa Butterfield. I think. I always confuse. I have them down, but I'm always afraid I'm confusing him and Cody Smith McPhee. I'm pretty sure it's Asa Butterfield this time around. And Asa Butterfield is now uber emo kid. And when I say that, I'm telling you, one of my biggest criticisms of this movie, I would just like to get out there real fast. They really take it to the next level with Asa Butterfield as the emo kid, and we want you to understand that. You know the whole hairstyle? His, I swear to God, is this. We can't fucking see his face because his hair is doing this thing. There is a miracle that happens 45 minutes into this movie where his character has the ultimate awakening and he cuts it. It was the best thing to happen to this movie. But let's not focus just on that. The rest of this story, because I'm sure you don't know what it is, because who the fuck knows what this movie is. I didn't know when I started it. I just kind of had to figure it out. He hangs out with his friend Teddy, I think was his name. And Teddy's kind of an also kind of like, you know, shaggy hair emo kid where I'm sensitive and deep and nobody likes me because of that. And so they go and they just hang out and they just do growing up in the 80s shit. That's just what they do. And then they meet Haley Steinfeld, who is kind of... Now, this is where I get lost a little bit. The relationships in this movie really confuse me, but what I think is going on here is Ethan Hawke's new girlfriend is Emily Mortimer, and Emily Mortimer's daughter is Haley Steinfeld. But Emily Mortimer and Haley Steinfeld don't live with him, but they are basically one big family. And when he goes back to Julianne Nicholson's house to pick up Asa Butterfield, to take him to... Because they start in Vermont. The kid lives in Vermont and Ethan Hawke's in New York, and he comes to Vermont to take him to New York, and that's where he spends his time after the big plot point happens. But he still walks... Ethan Hawke comes into Julianne Nicholson's house like he still lives there, and it's... Yeah, the character relationships are really confusing, but eventually... Before this all happens, Haley Steinfeld comes from New York to Vermont to hang out with them. I think that's what happened. So, they end up at a party, and she takes a liking to Teddy. She gets him addicted to coke, and they fuck. And Teddy ODs and dies. And that's just what happens. So, tragedy strikes, and after this tragedy strikes, that's when they say, why don't you go live with Ethan Hawke in New York? So that's where Asa Butterfield goes. But, plot twist, that one time she was with Teddy, she is now carrying his child. But she can't let anybody know because Emily Mortimer's the kind of mom where, this is a direct quote, this is Haley Steinfeld doing an impression of Emily Mortimer saying, darling, if you get pregnant, you're going to have an abortion. So... She refuses to tell anybody what happened, except for Asa Butterfield, who is her best friend now. And then we bring in a new character, who is Emil Hirsch, who was Teddy's older brother. And he is what is called a straight-edge rocker, where he is a rock star doing the whole thing without sex or drugs. He's like real adamant about abstinence and doing weird religious ritual shit. And all this is involved. And another, one of the main conflicts basically is the fact that you have Asa Butterfield who would like to have Teddy as a friend back, and you have Emil Hirsch who would like to have Teddy as a brother back, and you have Haley Steinfeld who only knew Teddy for like 2 hours before he fathered her child. And the issue is everybody around her wants like a surrogate Teddy with this kid. And she just wants to have a kid that's not some weird, creepy Teddy replacement. That's basically what's going on here. And that's what's going on here. This is the big issue, though. When I say Haley Steinfeld knew Teddy for about fucking 2 hours. We know him about as long as she did. Everybody in this movie is under the impression that Teddy is like this ultimate martyr of a saint, and I don't think that's where the title comes from, by the way. That's just what I'm saying. But we don't really know him long enough to get the idea that everybody in this movie fucking worshipped him. He was just some fucking kid that happened to OD because he was irresponsible and liked Haley Steinfeld. So yeah, that's what happens. He's the kind of kid that would do cocaine if it were offered to him and have unprotected sex with some girl he just met. And the entire point of the movie is that this kid needs to be an unforgotten saint. And this is where it kind of loses me. But apparently Teddy was the bee's knees. We just have to take their word for it. Because that's what the whole movie revolves around. The main thing to pay attention to, really, is the performances. And yeah, Haley Steinfeld is really, really good here. Hawke is really, really great, as usual. Emil Hirsch is fine. Not now because he's in jail, but in the movie he's fine. Asa Butterfield, I don't think it has to do with his performance. I think it's the character is really, really bland. For being the lead character, this guy doesn't do a whole lot, and there's really not a whole lot to care for him about, especially wearing his fucking hair like that. I know I'm dwelling on that way too much, but just fucking see it. You can probably Google it. Maybe there's a trailer that shows it, but it's... God, just looking at it fucking aggravates you. Oh my god. So, and this comes from a big place. This is what was it? The makers of American Splendor did this, I think. So there's just that's the main issue here. We've got some good performances in here, but the character relationships are fucking confusing. And the fact that we're making a saint out of this person we barely knew that doesn't give us a huge impression that he really deserves that. And all this going on, I don't know. There's just, I mean, it's not a bad movie, but it's really not very good. But one thing. For being a movie that's not very good and has way too fucking much going on, it's got decent pacing. I didn't feel like it's about an hour 40 something, but it didn't really feel long. Which with a movie like this, you would think it probably would, but no. At the very least, they didn't like hold you up too long. That's the compliment I can give it.
At least it was short.
Yeah, 1 hour. It was close. It was probably closer to an hour 50. So, but yeah, it was There are much worse movies. It's not,
There are much worse movies on this video.
Yeah. Like our last movie.
Oh, God.
Our last movie is Cymbeline. And this is a very, very, not very well-known Shakespeare play. I don't know if that title jumped out at people prior to this, but that's what it is. And yes, it's getting the Lerman treatment. It's set in present day, and that everything is going on like you would think it would. There's electronics, there's, social media, all that stuff going on. Every single thing about it is very, very current. It involves corrupt cops and motorcycle gangs and all that, instead of royalty. But the one thing that remains in all this is it's the Shakespearean dialogue right out of it, like Lerman's Romeo and Juliet movie, and also this is the same director that did Hamlet with Ethan Hawke, which was in this same fashion. And normally this is an interesting idea. I actually really like Lerman's Romeo and Juliet, and the Ethan Hawke Hamlet is all right, but this, I'm not quite sure what happened. I don't know if it's the story. The story is very, very muddled. Because this has a huge fucking cast list. I'm telling you who's in it and explaining how they do and what their purpose is. Let me try and piece this together. We have... Okay, we're not off to a good start. Our romantic leads are Penn Badgley and Dakota Johnson.
Oh, God.
But hold on, there's more, okay? And
start.
Dakota Johnson is the daughter of the king and queen, who are Ed Harris and Mia Jovovich. And this is like a secret love thing going on, of course, because it's Shakespeare. And then Mia Jovovich has another son from another marriage, who is Anton Yelchin, who is this meth dealer, who is insane. And she's basically trying to put him with Dakota Johnson and get Penn Badgley out of the picture. But there's more. There is an instigator. I wouldn't call him a villain, but he's definitely an instigator. That's who Ethan Hawke is. Yeah, he's plastered on this movie, and he's first credited in this long cast list and everything. And it's not even alphabetical, but he's a side character for sure. It was weird, because they really make him look like the star of it. And he basically bets that he can seduce Dakota Johnson's character, Deflower her. And of course he does so by means of taking fucking selfies with her unconscious body. But then there's more people. There is, a bodyguard for Ed Harris, I guess. It's John Leguizamo again. And yeah, there's somebody I totally left out of American Ultra, but I'll bring him up too. Leguizamo works for Ed Harris and is supposed to be doing shit that's not good for Dakota Johnson, but instead he's gonna help her out. It's another one of those things where they kind of fake their death so they can be with the one they love. I don't know. Shakespeare created that magic potion and nobody called him out on it, so he's just gonna use it now. And then we bring in Delroy Lindo, who helps Dakota Johnson out when she's in need and things are going really haywire. And then there's Bill Pullman, who is the ghost of the dead dad of Penn Badgley. And then at the end, they bring in Kevin Corrigan, who's going to be like an executioner. And there's just all different things going on here in this web of shit. And not a whole lot of it. There's so much going on that it rarely... The little segments that do come up aren't around long enough to give a shit about. So you just kind of have to watch it play out in these really weird, contrived things. And it felt very... This is one of those cases where I'm imagining it's a very, not very well-known Shakespeare play, because it was one of those cases where Shakespeare kind of pulled a Nicholas Sparks and started ripping himself off, I guess. So I don't know why they chose this one, but... Okay. But the thing about it, the thing that really makes it hard to take seriously is this whole... I understand where they were coming from. I imagine it's a lot like... Because obviously a lot of Shakespeare is about misunderstandings that lead to death. Innocent misunderstandings that lead to death. Or just really, really bad things. Well... And this is, I'm guessing, trying to be some kind of statement on how much more likely that stuff is to happen in the social media age. And does often. So, I guess that's what it's trying to do, but just the way they incorporate it feels so forced and unclear what they're trying to do. It's just really hard to take seriously. There was one scene where I was just kind of felt... It just kind of felt surreal, and not in a good way, where it's just like, am I seriously watching this happen right now? Where it's, obviously you have really incriminating stuff that goes down. Like in a play, it's probably just, two people whispering and saying, like, this shit went down, and they're like, oh no, that's terrible, something bad is going to happen. We have Ethan Hawke in a suit, sitting on a couch with Dakota Johnson, and he's talking about real incriminating shit, and showing her real incriminating pictures. There's just something about the image of Ethan Hawke sitting on this couch with Dakota Johnson doing Shakespearean dialogue in that original language while swiping, showing her the evidence. God. There's just something totally wrong about the picture that makes the movie feel really, really off. There's a funny scene where Anton Yelchin goes on Google Maps. Well, what? And it's just, they're just really, really trying to fit that in, and I get the point they're trying to reach. But it's just so hard to take this movie seriously. To put it bluntly, in a way that I can't really put in more elaborate words, this movie's kind of fucking dumb. Okay. And if that's not enough for you, I don't want to be cruel and I don't want to be mean or anything. But let me just get this point across. I'm sure it's something that's already gone through your head, but let me just put it out in the open right now. If you thought Dakota Johnson was really bad at delivering 50 Shades of Grey dialogue, I want you, without even knowing what it sounds like, to just try to imagine Dakota Johnson saying Shakespeare dialogue. You get that image now? It's worse. It's worse than you're thinking. It's like, for a little while there she was okay, but as it goes, you can't even believe what you're looking at. The whole movie, I mean, in some ways that's good when you're just watching a movie and you're like, whoa, what am I seeing? But here it's more like, what the fuck is this? I don't know what this is, but it's making me very uncomfortable. So yes, there is, once again, Ethan Hawke is fine. As he always is. Ed Harris as the head of a biker gang in a leather jacket. I really love the dude, but I don't think this part was necessarily for him. If they did it in, like, the actual way, totally. But this modern way, I don't know. And they also do kind of try to throw the stuff in there, though, like, Mia Jovovich is playing the queen, right? Well, even though we're set in modern day and her husband, the king, is the head of a motorcycle gang, she actually does wear a crown through the movie.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know. But I totally get where they thought this could be a success, and it has been before trying this, but totally not here. Just not at all. So, yes. That's it.
That's what we've got. So, in another edition of AJ's Movie Reviews, join us tomorrow. We're going to go into Pop Flashback for the segment of Plus and Minus, which are going to Disney's Hollywood Studios. Sunday, brand new Versus. We're going to continue our 2-month-long Robin Williams tribute. We're going to go dark comedy this time around.
Yes.
And Monday will be the return of Gaming with Ash. So, obviously, more Horror Nights content coming up soon. Hollywood just announced everything, so I got to do a video there soon. Watch for that sometime this weekend. And next week, AJ's Movie Reviews will be tackling We Are Your Friends, as well as No Escape and Horror Room, among some other limited releases.
Which is a new religious movie, so right on.
Is it called The D Train? Is that what it's called? The D Train?
The Jack Black movie?
Yes.
What about it?
That will be coming soon, as well as She's Funny That Way. So that's going to be coming in the next several weeks. Don't know exactly when, but they'll be coming eventually.
Alright.
So that's what we've got for this video. If you have a mobile device that is iTunes capable, definitely download our mobile app. It's under Suro and Disney. And check us out on moviepilot.com. AJ's stuff is automatically up there, so yeah, you can check that out. In the back catalog, I'm slowly trying to get that on there, so you can have all of AJ's stuff on there, the movie reviews and the verses. So that being said, thank you guys and girls out there for watching. AJ, any parting words? Ho!
What happened?
Star mounts. Ha ha, yes, star mounts. I fooled you guys because I forgot, because I'm stupid sometimes. Sinister 2.
1.5.
Jesus. Agent 47.
1.5.
American Ultra.
2.5.
10,000 Saints.
2.
Cymbeline.
1.5.
Alrighty then.
Ooh, success.
So thank you guys and girls out there for watching once more. And AJ, any parting words?
That's it.